Hello, Psychology 422, and welcome to Theories of Counseling. This is week 8, your final week of the course. So let's jump right into it and talk about how we are going to conclude the final week of this course. On the agenda here for reading, we are just down to one chapter. Chapter 15, which does a really good job of just tying everything together. So a little bit less on the reading this week. Hopefully you're able to go through it even in a little bit more detail, because this really is a very important chapter as it works on integrating and tying together all the things that have been learned up to this point. You have your PowerPoint slide there like usual. Take a look at that PowerPoint slide, get a good understanding of what is going to be covered, read through chapter 15 in detail, and then come back to that PowerPoint slide just as a summary. That is the best setup if you're able to do that. This is the brief video for this week. The video, you only have one of them this week, Integrative Counseling with Dr. Kotler. This is a really good summary really about integrative counseling and tying everything together. So definitely make sure that you take a look at that as it pertains to really your discussion board this week. So let's talk now about your discussion board, the final 2 assignments this week, discussion board, and also your final written assignment. Now do make note that this week, week 8, the course concludes on Friday, so you cannot turn in anything Saturday or Sunday. The course concludes on Friday. I just want to put that out in front of you as many times as I can. End of course, last day of the course is this Friday, so definitely make sure that you have everything turned in and that you've hopefully completed the course overview, or where you do the questions on it for the extra credit, so that we can really get a good understanding about these courses and making any corrections that we need to. Okay, so that's there for you. That is for the video. Week 8 discussion board, really good summary, again, tying everything together. So using the course materials and self-reflection, you're going to do the following. And again, just like on all the other assignments, best thing to do is to go through these piece by piece. Use each of these as a heading, and then you're ensuring that you're addressing each one of these questions. So the instructions are to please reflect on the various topics that have been covered throughout the course. How have your views of counseling changed? So what we're really addressing here is how your views of counseling have changed. In other words, what did you learn through this course as it pertains to the counseling process? So what are two to three things that you've learned that were most surprising and or interesting to you, and why? Okay, that's the first part that you're going to address there. 2 to 3 things that you've learned, and in that they were surprising, interesting, and you could go beyond that, helpful, insightful, meaningful, and really why. So 2 to 3 things that really stood out to you in this course that was helpful to you in the process of learning about counseling, and why. And if you were to suggest a friend or a family member to pursue counseling, would you have a specific therapy that you would recommend? And also explaining a little bit more detail. Yes, cognitive behavioral. Yes, family systems. Or yes, humanistic or existential. And give some explanation as to why that would be. Your initial post, 300 words. Remember, that is a minimum. And responding to at least 2 other posts of at least 50 words each. This is all due by Friday. Okay, so remember, everything is due by Friday. Okay, and then your capstone project, your final project, your critical assignment. I'm going to go through this piece by piece, and that way I can use the remaining time of this video here to explain this. The purpose of this critical assignment is for students to compose an essay that explains their theory of counseling based on the knowledge that they've gained about various counseling theories throughout the semester. As such, students are tasked with contemplating their personal convictions and preferences about how to best theorize the counseling process. In other words, students should think about what their theories and research they encountered during the semester that were most convincing to them, or most helpful, or most meaningful in creating your concept of counseling, okay? For example, what is the best explanation for how people change and grow? Is it from changing observable behavior, as behaviorism would say? Or is it about changing thought patterns, as the cognitive theorists would say? Or exploring deep unconscious attitudes, as Freud would say? Or changing the environment? Or some combination of these? These are the kinds of questions that students should ask themselves as they are preparing to write this paper. Students may choose to discuss their theory based heavily on one existing theory of counseling, or they may decide to integrate two or more existing theories together. In other words, you are kind of crafting what your theory of counseling is at this point. Do make a note here that you should thoroughly read through Chapter 15 of the course textbook before writing this essay. Chapter 15 by far is going to be the most helpful thing for you in writing this essay as far as the text is concerned. This essay should include 5 peer-reviewed journal articles. Remember, we're looking within the last 10 years, okay? So it should be within the last 10 years, or closer to the most recent date or current date, the better. You may also use the textbook or another book that maybe was referenced throughout the course, but these are in addition to these 5 peer-reviewed articles, okay? So these 5 peer-reviewed articles are the minimum that you have to have. Below is a detailed outline of what should be included in the essay. I cannot emphasize enough that your paper should look just like this. It literally lays out the perfect template for you to complete your essay. So please make sure that you carefully craft your paper according to this. That is going to ensure you get the maximum points on this assignment. First part is the introduction, half page. Make sure you're giving a good, solid academic introduction. Next, how do people change? Again, all of these should be headings. For example, first heading, introduction. Second heading, how do people change? Discuss your overall theory of how people change and grow in the counseling process. Is it because their mind changes? Is it because their responses change? Is it because they visit their subconscious through dream interpretation? Whatever it is, you need to explain what that process looks like overall for individuals. What does your theory suggest is necessary for someone to change? Rethinking through things, revisiting skewed thought patterns, changing their mindset, changing their behavioral responses. Whatever it is, you need to discuss those. Are there specific things that need to happen to help a client change? Yes or no, and what would those be? Okay, so 1 page, that's your second part. Your third part, counselor-client relationship. This also should be a page. Discuss what you believe is the best type of relationship that the counselor and client should maintain. Should it be one of close collaboration, or should it be one where the therapist is more distant, or somewhere in between? What about professional boundaries? The questions are very clear there, and what I would suggest is going through answering each one. But to give you a better insight or understanding on this, it's kind of like in a pastoral counseling context. The pastor is very close, usually, with the church member. Oftentimes, pastors are very trained in counseling. So that sort of counseling process, obviously, there's still professional boundaries. The pastor is obviously very professional in how he does the counseling, but he usually will know his client very well. He'll usually know his children and his or her wife or her husband or vice versa. He'll be involved in their lives. He'll have done house visits versus a professional therapist who is outside of the church. They may only see the individual or individuals in the counseling context with no relationship with them whatsoever. So what should that counselor-client relationship look like? What is the most ideal sort of setup for them to maintain those professional boundaries and to be the most helpful, to be the most proper, and really the most successful in bringing about change in the counseling process, okay? So that should be 1 page. Next one, counseling techniques. This also should be a page. Discuss 2 to 3 foundational techniques that you think are vital for the counseling process. What are the theories behind what these techniques work in counseling? So existential has some. The psychodynamic or Freudian have some. For example, what specific things should a therapist do in the early phases of therapy in order to build a strong collaborative relationship with a client? All of the counseling theories you've learned up to this point all have a slightly different perspective on this. So you need to kind of talk about what are the important techniques that are integrated in the counseling process to really best help a client. So that's the final question here. How best can a therapist help a client reduce their symptoms? Any techniques you believe are generally helpful for people seeking counseling. So dream interpretation or cognitive maps or free association or looking at certain anxieties or things that are causing issues and reframing them or restructuring them. These are all different types of techniques that are used in the counseling process depending upon the counselor's theoretical orientation. Okay, so you need to talk about which ones you think are key to the counseling process. Next, half-page section here, multicultural competence. Again, this should be your heading. Discuss your theory about the necessity of multicultural awareness and competence within the counseling process. For example, why is it important to be aware of multicultural issues when counseling diverse populations? So why is it so important to understand the background of individuals in a multicultural context? That should be pretty straightforward. You just need to explain that in academic writing. What does research have to say about the value of multicultural competence in therapy? I'll give you a hint. It has a lot to say about it because we do know that's very important. Okay, next section of your paper here, faith and personal influence. Discuss what degree your personal theory of counseling is influenced by your faith beliefs and or personal cultural background. Okay, so you can focus more on faith in particular, or you can focus more on personal cultural background, or you can focus on both of those together. But you're really talking here about the integration of your faith perspective or your overall worldview perspective in the counseling process, discussing that, fleshing it out, and make sure that you're addressing this here in about a page. And then last but not least, in about half page, you'll give your nice, solid academic conclusion, giving any concluding remarks, really summarizing everything you've talked about. This is a 5 to 6 page essay, okay? And that is just in the academic writing part. So in addition to that, if you gave 5 pages of text, your 6th page would be your title page, right? Your very first page, and then the last page would be your reference page. So you need to give at least 5 to 6 pages of just text answering each one of these. We've given the guidelines here of how much should be there. This literally is the perfect template. If you go through and use all of these as your headings, and then you specifically address the questions asked of each one, you're going to be able to meet those successfully, putting it all in APA format, okay? So again, 5 to 6 pages of text, plus a title page, plus a reference page. No abstract needed in this. Should be, and it must be. You will be graded strictly. This is a 400 level psychology course. You must write in APA format. I've talked with some of you about that in some of your papers, and tried kind of letting you know if you're scoring really good on your papers, you're hitting APA format good. And so you should be good to go. But if not, and you're scoring usually pretty low on the APA format, then you need to be revisiting the APA manual, okay? So closely review the APA publication manual prior to submission of this paper. And here is the rubric, the breakdown for it. And it's going to go basically just off of this. This really is the rubric for it, but this is going to show how you're going to be graded on it, right? How do people change? Part 1, counselor-client relationship, counseling techniques, multicultural competence, faith and personal influence, and then making sure you're in that APA formatting is going to be really that last part of it, okay? Do please remember to complete those course evaluations so that we can know that we're teaching these courses in the way that are best. And if you do that, you're able to get that 10 points of extra credit. I look forward to reading these. This is my favorite assignment to go through because it really shows what you've learned in this course. I know it's a bigger one, but this is kind of what it all culminates into in this. This is your theory of counseling, and it is very important, especially if you're going into an area of professional counseling. It's so great to have a good working idea about what that theory looks like early on in that process before going into further education of a graduate degree of some type, if any of you are going into the counseling fields. Even if not, it's great to have that overview. So that is week 8. Please get that to me as soon as you can. Look forward to reading all of those. Thank you all. And I'll be engaged with all of you through these. Thank you again, and finish strong.